Alrighty, it's 5:30, so I'm going to get started. Good evening, everyone. Thank you again for joining us. My name is Danielle Angelari, and I'm the Executive Director of NAMI Northern Illinois. And for those of you who are not familiar, we're an affiliate of the National Alliance on Mental Illness that serves Winnebago and Boone County and the surrounding counties in our region. We do this through offering support, education, advocacy, and hope to those touched by mental illness and our community. Just a couple of updates on our end before we get started. February 11th will mark the end of the NAMI Northern Illinois membership drive. Members are truly the lifeblood of our organization, from individuals with lived experience, families, and providers to legislators, leaders, and business owners. We need you, and it takes our whole community to change the state of mental health care and support those affected by mental illness. Creating new relationships and maintaining our current ones is essential to the impact, growth, and ultimately the success of the thing our organization does, improve lives. So we are challenging all of our current NAMI members to help us grow, and the top 3 individuals who recruit the highest number of members will win a prize. We have another community webinar next Tuesday at noon over Zoom with Olivia Gorel of Family Counseling Services. She will be speaking on mental health in the workplace. So join us to learn about avoiding burnout, strategies in reducing barriers to care, raising broader mental health awareness at work, and designing improvements to employee mental health. For anyone with an adult, family member, or loved one living with a mental illness, registration is open for our family-to-family education courses, both in English and in Spanish. They will begin early March. Research shows that the program significantly improves the coping and problem-solving abilities of the people closest to a person living with a mental health condition. Finally, I would like to mention that we plan dinner for you all on Thursday at our Jason's Deli fundraiser in Rockford, which is our first fundraiser of 2022 from 5 to 9 p.m. You can also get carry out as well. Just make sure you mention our fundraiser. And we're beginning our sale of Mrs. Fields goodies if anyone is interested. All the things that I mentioned to you previous, I will follow up with an email in the morning so you can have that at your access. But now, on to the reason you're here tonight. About 2 million times each year, people with serious mental illness are booked into jails nationwide. People with serious mental illness are incarcerated at 4 times the rate of the general population. These same people tend to stay in jail about twice as long as other individuals facing similar charges. And unfortunately, less than half of people with a history of mental illness received mental health treatment while held in jail. In 2005, the Mental Health Court in Winnebago County, known as the Therapeutic Intervention Program, or TIP Court, officially convened to reduce future incarceration rates of people with serious mental illness. TIP, like other specialized problem-solving courts, offers innovative alternatives to traditional court proceedings, such as improved access to treatment and community services, and provides the potential to stop the criminalization of mental illness. This presentation tonight will give us information and answer questions about the history, eligibility process, benefits of TIP court, and other problem-solving courts locally. Honorable Judge Janet Holmgren was not able to join us tonight, but I'm honored to introduce you to Emily Behnke, who is a Deputy Court Administrator for the 17th Judicial Court, where she serves as the Problem-Solving Courts Coordinator for Winnebago County. She manages the day-to-day operations for 5 problem-solving courts and provides grant administration oversight. Emily also is the direct supervisor for 3 support staff positions for the problem-solving courts in Winnebago County and oversees all data collection for the programs. Prior to joining the trial court administration staff in 2015, she previously served as Deputy Coroner for Winnebago County, conducting death investigations for 8 years. Emily received her bachelor's in sociology at the University of Illinois in 2007 and her master's in criminal justice from the University of Wisconsin-Platteville with an emphasis on administration in 2010. Emily, thank you so much for sharing your time with us tonight. And just one thing for the audience, if you have any questions, please feel free to write them in the Q&A box and we'll facilitate them at the end. So again, thank you, Emily. Hand it over to you.
Thank you, Danielle. Start my presentation here. All right, so for today's presentation, I wanted to go over the guiding principles for problem-solving court and what makes a problem-solving court, and also discuss the 5 problem-solving courts here in Winnebago County. So we'll go through each of them. They consist of the adult drug court, the therapeutic intervention program, TIP court, which is our mental health court here in Winnebago County, and the veterans court program. And then we have a family recovery court and a youth recovery court. So as Danielle cited some pretty important statistics, there's a heavy overrepresentation of individuals in the jail and prison population that have substance use disorders. And as you can see by this breakdown with the percentages, in jail and prison, it's pretty prevalent compared to the average household. We also see a heavy overrepresentation of individuals with serious mental illness in the jail and prison population. And this is really what the core of the problem-solving courts is working to address. The problem-solving courts operates off of a risk needs responsivity, and the risk principle is designed out of assessments that are done to determine the likelihood of reoffending or violating the terms of community supervision. So this is an assessment that's done on the front end that helps guide us as to what the appropriate level of community supervision would be for an individual involved in the criminal justice system. The needs principle is the qualified clinician conducting a behavioral health assessment to determine what behavioral health needs the individual would need to address the issues that brought them into the criminal justice system in the first place. And the responsivity is our tailored approach of interventions to address the individual's risk and needs. So we want to take into account all of the identified needs that the individual has and combine that with the risk of reoffending and determine what we can do as a court program to address those needs and really help the individual get on the right track. The problem-solving courts in general have many components that are the same across the problem-solving courts. And then, so I'm going to talk a little bit about those common components, and then we'll go into each of the individual problem-solving courts a little bit more in-depthly.
Hey, Emily.
Yes.
I just wanted you to know that the display setting was, I went back to like what it was earlier.
Okay. Let me see if I can fix that here. Does that look right to you now?
It's still the same. I'm sure it's fine.
Let me stop the share and restart it and see if we can get it back. All right, how's that?
Looks good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so a problem-solving court has a specialized court docket or court program. So everybody on that court docket or court program is going to be seeing the same interventions and having the same opportunities for treatment. The programs are voluntary. They all are designed to work with the identified target population for that specific court program, which I'll go into as we talk about each of them. They contain a non-adversarial approach, which is a little bit different than the normal courtroom. Everyone's going to be a bit more, obviously non-adversarial, but a little bit more encouraging in the court process and maybe even a little bit more informal in the court process. All the team members are cross-trained. So the clinicians on the team are trained in the legal issues that the participants are facing, and the court staff and legal team members are trained in mental health and substance use disorder. The participants appear frequently for court appearances and have strict monitoring for compliance with the supervision and the treatment requirements. So if an individual is not attending their probation office visits or has stopped attending treatment, the rest of the team members are going to know that right away. So intervention can happen very quickly. And they also do frequent random drug testing. There's access to treatment resources that are designed for that specific target population. And we pair a strategic use of therapeutic adjustments as well as incentives and sanctions to shape participant thinking, attitudes, and behavior. And all the team members on problem-solving courts are trained in trauma-informed care. They receive a lot of training in specialized areas such as human trafficking, obviously mental health and substance use disorder. And we continue that training frequently throughout the year and consistently so that we all stay up to date on the latest interventions that are effective. The target populations for our adult drug court, our mental health court, and our veterans court are all very similar. The individuals need to be an adult. They need to potentially be high risk, high needs, but we'll talk about that in some of the variations, and have a targeted diagnosis. The most important thing is that a participant has to be willing to participate. So although they may have a heavy court obligation that may steer their participation, they have to be willing to do the program. And then they need to be a resident of Winnebago County. Participants have quite a few requirements in a problem-solving court. For many individuals, this is the first thing that they need to focus on before working towards jobs and other community involvement. So they will attend frequent court status hearings. Initially, as someone enters the program, that's going to be weekly. Sometimes it could be even bi-weekly. And then as they get further in the program, those court dates are going to get stretched out a little bit more, and they'll have a little bit less obligation to attend court hearings. But even all the way through the end of their time in the program, they're going to be in court at least once a month. They're going to attend regular probation office visits. Those are going to similarly align with the court hearings as far as frequency. And they have to be addressing drug and alcohol use. So as long as an individual is honest with us about their struggles and forthcoming about use, we're able to continue to modify the treatment plan. However, if someone is using and not forthcoming, there might be a sanction that would accompany that. They need to comply with frequent and random drug testing, commit no new offenses. Committing a new offense could be an exit from the program depending on what that offense is. And they need to comply with all requirements of their probation supervision plan. They also need to comply with all the requirements of their treatment plan. So although it is voluntary to come into the program, by coming into the program, they're agreeing that they're going to follow the treatment plan that is developed for them. They also are required to take medications as prescribed and comply with all sanctions, therapeutic adjustments that are imposed in response to any violations or in response to any violations to the consent to participate. So the number one thing that is expected of the individuals is that they work towards honesty with the team members. And honesty really is the foundation for the interactions between the participants and the team. So here's some examples of ways in which there are court interventions. This is all in addition to treatment. So treatment is the number one focus. We want to get them into their appropriate treatment services, but we also do a system of rewards and sanctions to help modify behavior. So this helps us to guide us also to ensure that we're giving fair approaches and really offering some procedural fairness to the participants in how we outline our rewards and sanctions. If you attend a problem-solving court hearing, you're going to hear praise. You're going to hear a lot of feedback from the judge. That's going to be a lot of interaction and the opportunity for a participant to be open and honest with the judge, which you would maybe not see in other settings. We also applaud the individuals. We want them to know when they've done something really well or when they've overcome a tough hurdle. We also want the other participants that are in court to learn from their peers. That can sometimes be what we hear is the biggest motivator for them, and really learning from each other. We have a reward card that we have in the courtroom that has all items that are kind of a variety of basic necessity things like laundry soap, dish soap, things like that. It also contains journals and colored pencils and adult coloring books and things that they can use to, be creative. So the reward card is offered to individuals that have been doing well. And we have reward cards that we present to clients to tie in, a treatment goal or a learned skill that they have obtained and that we have seen them exhibit that they have internalized that. They may also get called earlier in the court call or have longer stretched out court dates, access to getting travel requests granted. They advance through levels, so getting a level advancement is a reward for them. And then ultimately, the end goal that we hope for everybody is graduation. Now, the sanctions that we implement to help modify behavior may be a verbal admonishment from the judge explaining what they did incorrectly and what the team expects them to do moving forward. They may sit through a court call and observe the court call so that they can learn from other people's behavior. It may be public service work. And then as we go through in sanctions, the sanctions become more cumbersome. So written assignment, more frequent contact with the court, increased contact with the team. And eventually, once we've exhausted all of the lower level sanctions, it may be serving a jail sanction. And ultimately, if the team reaches that point where the interventions aren't working, then it may be an exit from the program. So the drug court program was established in 1996, and the core drug court program or team is going to mirror what you'll see for the other problem-solving court teams as well. It brings the judge, the court coordinator, the state's attorney, the public defender, probation officers, the clinical assessor, recovery coaches, treatment providers, all to the table. And there's a data assistant assigned to each court to collect data, as most of our programs are run through grant funding that we receive from either the state of Illinois or federal funding sources. The eligibility for drug court population is that the individual has to be an adult, have an eligible felony offense, and the program is designed to be a post-plea disposition. So that means that individuals who enter the drug court program know that they will need to be pleading guilty to their charges to enter into a term of probation. So all individuals are assigned to probation, and they have a substance use disorder diagnosis based on a clinical assessment. They score high risk and high need within the probation assessment. So we're looking at individuals that have been unsuccessful on standard probation. Many of them have been to prison before, and those interventions have not worked. So this is the something else that we're trying to do to give them the treatment that they maybe didn't receive previously. They need to be willing to sign a consent to participate and be a resident of Winnebago County. They also have to be to not have any legal holds for pending charges elsewhere. There is a drug court statute that outlines exclusionary charges that would not be eligible for in a problem-solving court. And as you can see, those are some pretty serious charges that would deem a person to be ineligible. The state's consent is needed if the individual is referred to drug court and has a class 2 or higher felony drug charge, and if they have been in a problem-solving court on more than 3 occasions. Otherwise, state consent is not needed for them to participate. Although the state's attorney's office is part of our team, and all team members weigh in when we discuss eligibility. So the drug court resources are pretty extensive. We are able to access detox, inpatient. All of our participants go through intensive outpatient at some point. We have our own drug court specific intensive outpatient groups that also couple criminal thinking patterns and bring in that CBT element to address criminal thinking. We also have continuing care, access to recovery homes, medication-assisted treatment. We have recovery coaches that can provide case management and peer recovery services. We have a trauma-specific seeking safety group that is just for the drug court program. We also have dialectical behavioral therapy, or DBT, which addresses mood disorders and is for individuals with those certain disorders. We offer moral recognition therapy, or MRT, to address thinking patterns. And we are able to access individual services through the RIC or groups through the RIC that are available to individuals on probation. In addition to these services, we refer individuals to attend recovery groups in the community or find recovery groups, because we really want them to engage in a recovery support network that's going to last beyond drug court. And then also they're able to access mental health services through Rosecrans through our program. Now, it's important to understand that although we have a mental health court here in Winnebago County, many of our individuals in drug court also have mental health diagnoses or traumatic histories that require that they receive some mental health services. So we closely link with the mental health services and work to get those individuals engaged in services also. If we find that someone in drug court is in need of more services, we're able to transfer them or refer them to our mental health court, which is the Therapeutic Intervention Program, also known as TIP Court. As Danielle said, this was established in 2005. The team consists of the judge, the coordinator, the state's attorney, public defender, probation officers, and then the clinical team members. And as you can see, we have quite a robust clinical team that joins the TIP team. These individuals are Rosecrans staff that are working solely with the TIP Court program. So we have a nurse, case managers, we have a trauma therapist or a dual diagnosis therapist, and then we have a family psychosocial therapist or worker that can work with the families. And our database assistant, as data collection is incredibly important. Our mental health court is predominantly sustained on grant funding through the state of Illinois. Our TIP court schedule, the team meets on Wednesdays and staffs cases. And I think it's important to note that the team spends the entire morning discussing the cases and going through each one to make sure that they are, that everybody's on the same page and knows what's going on with each client and is able to determine what the suggested outcome be for court. Now, all participants have an opportunity to be heard before any sanctions are implemented or anything of that nature. But the goal by doing this staffing ahead of time is that everybody can make sure that they are all on the same page so that the participant is able to see kind of a united front on the team and hear from all of the parties, you know, what treatment is recommended for them, why it's needed, and be able to explain that. So our target population for TIP court is adults. They would have misdemeanor or felony charges. So we take both in this program. And although the program is predominantly post-plea, which means that they would plead to a term of probation when they enter the program, there are some situations in which the state's attorney's office and the defense counsel will come up with a deferred prosecution. The individual would have a diagnosis of a serious mental illness and needs to be moderate to high risk on the probation assessment. We do also in TIP court take some lower risk individuals on a case-by-case basis if there is an extreme legal benefit maybe they're facing prison if not for tip court. But it would be on a case-by-case basis, and we would definitely work to keep those individuals separate, as you don't want to mix risk levels. They also have to be fit to stand trial. So if an individual's mental illness has reached a point where they're in crisis and are considered unfit, then fitness would need to be restored before they'd be able to engage in our program. And they need to be willing to sign the consent to participate. The exclusions for tip court under the mental health court statute in Illinois are very similar to the drug court statute. So there are some offenses that are not able to be brought into the mental health court. And in addition to that, traumatic brain injuries, fetal alcohol syndrome, and developmental disabilities, as well as autism diagnoses, may be a exclusionary criteria, but we would evaluate those on a case-by-case basis. It would really depend on what the primary diagnosis is for the individual. We want to make sure that the treatment interventions that we have to offer are appropriate for what that person's primary diagnosis is. And guardianship is a barrier, as the person needs to be able to legally consent on their own. The tip court program has psychiatric care, has medication management. We have medical needs management through our team nurse that is assigned to the tip court program. We have medication assisted treatment, case management services. Our case managers help with housing, benefits, transportation, financial assistance, as well as, many other things. They're really, in the community, meeting people where they're at and helping with any needs that arise. We also have trauma therapy, individual counseling, family and education counseling. Some of our groups are living in balance. We have CBT, DBT, and IMR. So a lot of alphabet soup there, but essentially all that to say that we have a significant amount of wraparound treatment services to address the mental health services, mental health needs through any services that we find that a client needs. We've even had situations where all of a sudden, there's multiple participants that seem to be presenting with additional needs. So we can, find out what the evidence-based treatment would be for that and try and see if we can modify our program and implement it to meet their needs as well. And then substance use disorder treatment through Rosecrans. Just like with drug court, where, we have a lot of co-occurring diagnosis. We have a lot of co-occurring diagnosis in tip court as well. The difference between the two programs being that there are more comprehensive mental health services available in tip court. So if an individual's mental health needs are significant, then tip would be a more appropriate place for them than drug court. And then again, moral recognition therapy and thinking for good to address criminal thinking patterns or thinking patterns in general. And we work closely with stepping stones for some of the individuals that are in need of supportive housing that are in our program. And we access other recovery housing in the community and have access to the probation resources. Our Veterans Court program was established in 2012, and Veterans Court really is a form of a mental health court for veterans that were either honorably or medically discharged, so they're able to access VA benefits. So the Veterans Court team, very similar setup in that it combines the court personnel with the VA and also Rosecrans to provide wraparound services for those individuals. In addition, our Veterans Court has historically had volunteer mentors that are able to meet with the clients and provide a peer mentor. Now, the eligibility criteria for Veterans Court is very similar to tip court. There needs to be a behavioral health diagnosis. In many situations, it's co-occurring. We also take moderate to high risk in Veterans Court and the availability of some lower risk individuals. and the person has to be willing to participate and be a resident of Winnebago County. The exclusions are also the same in the Veterans Court statute as in the Mental Health Court statute. Now, the Veterans Court services that we're able to provide include the mentor program, although we're always looking for veteran mentors that would like to engage and help, be a peer mentor for those in our court program. We're able to access all the VA resources locally and nationally. So there are inpatient facilities across the United States that are able to be accessed, as well as the local services. And we are in the Madison catchment, so majority of our services filter through Madison. Substance use disorder treatment often is currently through Rosecrans. So we partner with that community organization as well, and we access PTSD specific treatment for the veterans, CBT, MRT. They receive psychiatric care, individual and group counseling services, medical care through the VA, medication management, medication assisted treatment if applicable. And we've had several veterans in the past that have accessed services for obtaining animal, comfort animal or service animals through those programs. So overall, the providers for the adult problem solving courts, or the resources we use in the community, are Rosecrans, Stepping Stones, Remedies. We have a variety of community resources for housing options and some additional support through the rescue mission. And then, trying to partner with Crusader and the other providers in the community for medical care. So when an individual comes into our program, we really try to establish releases and access as many of the services in the community as they need. Now, switching gears a little bit, our family recovery court program is a little bit different than the adult problem solving courts in that these individuals are involved in the abuse and neglect court system, which is a civil court process. So it was established in 2009. It is for individuals that have a mental health or substance use disorder. And we work to address their needs in an effort to help them reunite with their children. The Family Recovery Court program, again, pairs the court personnel, judge, state's attorney, the counsel for the parents, as well as a guardian ad litem for the juvenile, DCFS caseworker, and Rosecrans. And the team provides a full array of treatment services. We're able to access treatment services through DCFS based on referrals, also with other partner agencies too, or child welfare agencies. We're able to access parenting programs, counseling services. We partner with Rosecrans for substance use disorder services through Project Safe, and we refer individuals for mental health services as well as needed. And then our Youth Recovery Court program. This is our only program that is focused towards juveniles, and this is for juvenile offenders. It was convened in 2012, and it actually spans both Winnebago and Boone County. So we have participants in both counties, and this is for juveniles that have juvenile delinquency cases. So they're being supervised by juvenile probation, and they have a mental illness, but very often a co-occurring disorder. So, the lot of linkages to services to address, a wide array of issues that the juveniles are facing that brought them into the criminal justice system. And the Youth Recovery Court team, again, pairs the court personnel with the clinical personnel. The Youth Recovery Court team clinical personnel consists of a home-based therapist that meets with clients out in the community, a case manager, and a substance use disorder therapist. The resources that are available to YRC are access to psychiatric care, medication management, individual counseling, family counseling, substance use disorder treatment, and that can be, outpatient all the way to inpatient through multiple providers. Moral recognition therapy as available. We also, the team members also work heavily in education advocacy and working with the school districts, and the case management portion of the team really focuses on helping the families with housing, benefits, and basic needs. We do make a lot of referrals to Youth Build, Job Corps, and other agencies in the community. And again, the partners for Youth Recovery Court are Rosecrans and Juvenile Probation for both Winnebago and Boone County. Now, all 5 of the problem-solving courts have a very similar referral process. This is by design because we want it to be as easy as possible for someone to refer to a problem-solving court and find out if an individual is eligible. So the referral process starts with a referral form. It's the same referral form for all 5 courts, and it just basically gathers basic demographics of the individual that's being referred and contact information for them. Once the referral is received by problem-solving court staff, they screen it for basic eligibility against the applicable state statutes to make sure that the offense is an eligible offense. If state consent is required, they reach out to the state's attorney's office and request consent. Or if state consent is not required, they notify them of the referral, because we want to make sure the original courtroom knows that the referral has now been made and is in progress. If the offense has a victim, like for example, a domestic battery, we would ask the state's attorney's office to make sure that any victim information that needs to be considered by the judge is available. And then if there's a question about someone's eligibility or the charge is not something that's eligible by statute, then we would set it for pre-staffing. And at the next staffing session for that court, we would talk about it as a team. That's by design so that everybody on the team is aware of every referral that comes through. There's no gatekeeper here. So we want to make sure that if there's any objections from any team members, or maybe there's more information that our staff didn't have that would make the person eligible, that can be brought forward. If the person is determined to be ineligible, then the referral will be closed and the referring courtroom will be notified. If the person is determined to be eligible, which majority of the referrals that we receive go straight through this process and go into the potentially eligible, and they're forwarded to a clinical assessor. So we contract with Rosecrans to receive assessment services so that a clinical assessment can be done on everybody who's referred, and we can know what the needs are for that individual. And once we have that assessment returned, which would be 14 days for someone who's in custody, 30 days for someone who's out of custody, we set it for staffing with the team. And all the team members are expected to bring forth any information they have about the case that needs to be considered by the team. So all team members in staffings, not just to determine eligibility, but just staffings in general, have a voice at the table and are able to present what their professional opinion is. And then at the end, the judge has the final determination. So this allows for, the state's attorney's office to really bring forth the information that they feel is necessary, for the defense counsel to bring forth their information, for treatment to advocate based on the information that they have, and for probation to also advocate based on the information they have. Then once the team has reached a decision and it is determined if a person is eligible, then that is conveyed to the original courtroom and the person is set to consent into the program. Before they consent, their attorney is going to go over all of the information again with them. So they hear it from the assessor, and then they hear it from their attorney, exactly what they're getting into by coming into a problem-solving court, what all we have to offer them, and all of the treatment services that we can link them to. So this is my contact information. I'll go ahead and stop my screen share so we can address any questions.
Thank you so much, Emily. That was a ton of information.
Yes.
We appreciate it a lot. Yeah, happy to answer questions or facilitate that with you if the audience has any.
Yeah. I'll make sure that my contact information and the referral email address is sent out.
Sure. Someone asked, do you know the success rate of the problem-solving courts?
So each court varies slightly, but essentially the success rate across the board nationally, it hovers around 25%. I can say in our drug court program last year, we graduated 21 participants, and those are the individuals that successfully completed. There's also an element of a whole group of people that, not many, but that leave our program on a more neutral stance, where they've completed their probation requirements. Maybe they didn't get all the way to graduation, but they, access those treatment services. So success can be hard to measure because, whose success are we measuring? But generally, when you're talking about like graduation rates, we're looking at about 25%.
Thank you. How long does this process take from intake to completion?
So again, it kind of varies from participant to participant and program to program, but on average, we're looking at 24 to 30 months that the individual is going to be with one of our court programs. If somebody is struggling and they're continuing to access treatment services and engage with the team, that could be extended, and so that we can continue to offer them treatment services. If someone, accesses their treatment services and immediately does great and just kind of gets through all of those clinical recommendations that were outlined for them, they may graduate early. So average 24 to 36 months, but there's some variance in there.
Thank you. So for the services that you described tonight, do you have to live in Winnebago, just Winnebago County, correct?
Yes, to be able to be supervised by Winnebago County Probation, they'd need to be living in Winnebago County. The exception to that is our youth recovery court program, so youth mental health court, that spans both Winnebago and Boone County. So we hold a session in Boone County on Thursdays and a session in Winnebago on Tuesdays.
This might also help with that answer. Are you aware of other problem-solving courts in different counties surrounding us, like Cook, for example?
Yes, so several years ago, there was legislation put in place that suggested or required, I think, that every jurisdiction have a drug court and a mental health court. I think a lot of those jurisdictions are still working on what makes sense for them if they're a small community. But yes, there are many problem-solving courts throughout the state of Illinois. And a lot of us meet and work together across a lot of different groups and sharing information so that we can learn from each other and find out what works or, what doesn't work in each of those arenas.
Thank you. How does an offender get referred to the program?
So the easiest way as far as checking, and knowing if they're eligible legally is to talk to their attorney. However, anybody can make a referral to a problem-solving court. We really do that in hopes that there is less barriers and that people are able to access those services. So Anybody can contact trial court administration or contact me and get a referral form and submit a referral form. I should mention that also inmates at Winnebago County Jail have access to our referral information and our brochures about each of the programs so that they can refer themselves if they would like.
Thank you again. Are there any more questions? If not, I will follow up with an email in the morning, like I mentioned, with a copy of the presentation and Emily's contact information. If you want to reach out to her or myself. Thank you all again for coming. I'm going to share with you a quick poll, if you don't mind. Just a quick 5 questions. I promise it's not painful. And thank you again, Emily. I appreciate all the work you do.
Absolutely. We appreciate the partnership, and it's great to have resources in the community like NAMI.
Thank you. Everyone have a good night when you're finished with the poll. Thank you.
Thank you.